Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome in. It is 10 p.m. Central Time on July 4th, 2016. As you can see on the screen that's been running all day here, we have fireworks on the screen, and I've got fireworks going on behind me. My cats are in full panic mode. It must be 4th of July. To top it off, I've got a Samuel Smith chocolate stout in my hand. The sweet bitter taste of a chocolate stout. Never tasted better tonight. So, how's everybody doing? If you're in the States, I want to wish you a happy 4th of July, celebrating what independence we have left, and it is what we make it. So, let's celebrate our independence now and wish each other a great, happy holiday and work for the next year to try and make next year more free than we were this year. And make that a goal every year, kind of like a New Year's resolution, but on the 4th of July here in the States, that we're going to do everything we can over the year to try and make the world more free and to live life by example, not just complain about it, but to congregate in groups, freely associate since we have that right, and to make the world a better place regardless of all the bad things that are going on. We're not going to get into that. But I just want to tell everybody again in the States here, happy 4th, for real. It's a time where we celebrate a freedom that a lot of the people didn't have for many years in the world. For hundreds of years, people didn't have any kind of freedom under the monarchy. So anyways, let's get into the earthquakes. We're looking at the last 24 hours of activity, everything that struck since last night when I was talking. And I did an update earlier today just to let people know what was going on internationally, and that a few of the spots that we warned for movement were struck. And if you tuned in last night, let's do the international portion of this first, then we'll get into everything that happened on the West Coast. You can see the East Coast was struck, the New Madrid seismic zone was struck, and internationally, look at what happened at Japan. Since yesterday, the swarm that started in Japan spread out down the Izu Ridge and up north to the Kuril Islands Western Aleutian Island chain, which is part of Alaska. And we have a fairly large earthquake striking there, a 5.3, and then two 3.7 and 3.4. So, what is that movement? Well, that's the movement we would expect to see transfer over across Alaska. As I told you last night, a viewer asked me 2 days ago about the earthquakes in Japan. And to see those, right now, since we're just looking at the last 24 hours, I actually have to turn on the last 7 days of earthquakes. Then you'll be able to see the lighter earthquakes are in white. Those are the past day, day and a half, 2 days. And then the pinkish earthquakes and red earthquakes go back the week. So the pinkish earthquakes is the 5.0 that struck when the viewer asked, hey, what's going to happen off that 5? I told them to watch across Alaska for nearby movement, shallow, similar in size to the movement to the south, and then look what struck. A new swarm of 5s and upper 3s, lower 4s, just to the northeast along the Aleutian chain. And now Pavlov volcano reports that it's been heightened for a new eruption, again at Pavlov. Again, look down to the south, and we had a cluster spot that we were talking about last night at Fiji, and then we said watch the Solomon Islands for new movement to strike. Well, a 5.9 struck this morning, and it's now classified as a 5.6, but there's that 6.0 we were watching for. Again, we were watching Solomon Islands for a 6, said to watch for a 6 because the movement to the west and the movement to the east take us up 1 magnitude larger than the 5s, and that put us up to 5.9, again now revised down to 5.6. So the silent zone at Solomon Sea was hit. The silent zone near Alaska in the creeping earthquakes that are creeping north, it's obvious, all the way from South Japan up to north of Japan. Then, over here in the United States, we saw a new activity develop out south of us in Mexico, the middle of the silent zone there. So let me take this down just one notch to yesterday's earthquakes. And you remember the 5.3 that struck in Costa Rica? And I said, watch the middle of the silent zone in between South California, where all that movement has occurred over the past several days, and down here to the south at the 5.3. And then that puts us right where the 4.3 struck, and the 4.5. But the 4.3 is right in the middle, and that's that middle fulcrum point, as I was talking about, with these silent zones that tend to be struck. Additionally to that, down here to the south, coast of Peru was struck on the northwest coast of Peru. Now the southwest coast of Peru was struck by a 5.0. And this is the exact spot where we told you guys to watch yesterday for new movement today. And now it is struck, and the larger earthquake struck right at the border of Peru and Chile. So that should all be signs that, again, earthquakes do progress across regions, even though the professionals say they don't. Finally, internationally speaking, you remember the stack of earthquakes we talked about here yesterday? Okay, well, you can still see them on the map here now. Let's take this down for the last day, and then you'll see the swarm stopped as of yesterday night, yesterday evening. Going throughout today, nothing, but then look what struck over to the east. Over to the east, along the mid-Atlantic ridge, just as we told you to watch for, a 5 struck, or a 4.9 now revised, right along the mid-Atlantic ridge fracture zone. So all of those 3s expended most of the energy that had built there. See the huge stack? Whatever was left over as of yesterday went to the east and caused the new borderline 5 along the mid-Atlantic ridge. Again, finally proof that earthquake pressure transfers to the east and releases upon the mid-Atlantic ridge, defying all of modern-day geology. So there's our quick international update, and we'll get into Europe in a second. I'm actually going to do the full update on Europe and the forecast towards the end of this broadcast. But let's get into the U.S. Since most of my viewers are here, you guys are the ones who I'm doing this for on the West Coast. Most of you are tuned in on the West Coast right now. And on the East Coast, I've noticed a lot of people are now tuning in because we're telling you to watch for earthquake activity on the East Coast. And it's striking in the spots where we're warning. Now, it's small movement. You wouldn't actually possibly even feel this, maybe right above the epicenter, the 1.1, for instance, in New Jersey. But it's more a sign of just that the pressure does transfer across the plate. But where does it come from? Over here on the East Coast. It comes from the West Coast. So this is just the last 24 hours since last night's update. Now, you may remember last night the stack of earthquakes that was down here at Salton Sea. We'll take a look at it now. Now, there's so many rings on the map, I have to turn this down so you can make out the areas. Now, look what happened over the last 24. The swarm spread out again, and the turnaround time on this from the time the swarm strikes till the time it spreads out is getting less and less. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that when a swarm is striking, when it first started, it built and built and built, and one area finally started to transfer out to the north, to the west, to the south. Now it's just taking a day for that to occur because the fracture already occurred at the magma chamber that's rising there. That spot has already risen, I believe. And the only way we'll ever really know about the rise around Salton Sea, first of all, they confirmed it. I mean, they did confirm it. They came out and confirmed a week ago, or a week and a half ago, right after we started talking about the rise that must be occurring in this spot. Somebody went back and went over all the old GPS data and compared it to new and found out that the area north of Salton Sea going east to the border is rising. And then they said other areas are subsiding or falling. Areas nearby are falling while the one area is rising, the other area sinks, and of course, that's expected on a plate that's bending. Well, we told you last night to watch for earthquakes to creep up towards Los Angeles. Now the size, we're watching for larger movement to strike for sure, but a 1.7 striking there, creeping up the coast as we'd expect. And we told you to watch for that, and now it's right in, or very close to, Los Angeles, just south of LA downtown, going down to Corona, let's say Corona del Mar, Balboa Beach, somewhere right down in that region. To the north, northwest, we see movement continues along the fault zone with larger earthquakes now developing. Yesterday it was just zeros and ones. Again, you have to pay attention to these updates every night when I do them. That's why it's important to be here live. This is almost like live news. You can either DVR it and record it, but it's like the live news, so you have to pay attention to the weather. We're going to record it going forward. But it's important to be here each night. Now, I'm not trying to do that for myself. It's just so that you guys know where to watch, and we can compare to the areas that are now being hit. And it crept down towards Los Angeles last night, culminating with just that smaller earthquake you see on the map here, now north of Santa Barbara. Well, now it's starting to go into twos along the fault zone as it creeps down the coast again. And now it's pressing further up into LA proper, the next spot to move. Now, it should be a larger earthquake that strikes once these two zones connect. It's coming down from the north, pushing up from the south, sandwiching in between in this area. Now, could strike right off the coast. And it may just be in that 4 range. We're looking for the 4 range. I'd like to tell everybody, I just got done with a family function here. Of course, it's 4th of July. And one of my relatives from California is here, and she was telling me about how they all pay attention to earthquakes, and they have their own kind of warning systems that they've developed themselves. Like they have things in their houses they know will shake. And this is people in California. They're used to it, guys. So They know what to look out for, sort of. And the importance of seismic forecasting at this point, I think, is going to pay off for the people in California. But just knowing that they're already concerned with earthquakes on the West Coast. I'm not speaking anything kind of foreign to the people on the West Coast. You already know this, but I want you to know what magnitudes to watch for. So as I told my relative today, we're only watching for that 4-ish, maybe low 5 range magnitude strike, which for people in California isn't that big of a deal. Now, you wouldn't get that impression when you watch TV. You remember the news anchor guy who jumped under his desk in the last 5 that hit last year in Southern California and Los Angeles? They were on the news. This is great. This big, kind of tough, muscular guy is on TV. He's a news anchor, and he's got this girl sitting next to him. And I think I want to say it was 4.9 hit. And things started to shake, but it wasn't that bad. And he just... his eyes lit up, and he dove under the desk, and the girl just stayed there. The girl just stayed there, and he's all peeking up from underneath the desk, and it went viral because it was an overreaction to a 4. Okay, and he lived there, so that was kind of the funny part about that. But what do you do during an earthquake? When he dove under the desk, it's the right idea when it's a bigger earthquake, when things could be falling on you for certain. You want to dive under a desk, and you don't want to peek back up like he did. You want to stay underneath until it's done. But again, in California, you're used to this, so we're only watching for that 4 to 5, but internationally speaking, it plays into the movement that's been happening elsewhere, happening to the north and to the south, and we would expect it to strike the silent zone. And the silent zone is Los Angeles, at least to the south, and then we have a dead spot, a dead zone, I won't even call it a silent zone, right here across the coast of Oregon. Now, we've seen the authorities officially not report earthquakes off the coast sometimes, especially when we're talking about it. Like we say, hey, watch for an earthquake here. Well, the people who are in charge there in the Northwest, several of them are actually on my pages still and have said some really horrible things in the press, issuing press releases about me to CBS News from the agency up there, mentioning me personally, like by name, and saying all kinds of stuff. So about earthquake forecasting. So we know they're paying attention to the earthquake forecast, but then they didn't report the earthquakes that struck because it coincided with the forecast. It's the craziest thing in the world, but they did it. Hundreds, if not thousands of my viewers saw them do it and took them to task for not reporting the earthquakes. But anyway, so has an earthquake struck there off the coast? Well, I don't think anybody would ever know. It's the proverbial, if the tree falls in the woods, does anyone hear it? Well, yes, it makes a sound, but does anyone hear it? No. So, again, we rely on the agency that's permanently and trashed my name forever in the news to give us this information, and we know that they're trolling the forecast. So would they omit an earthquake off the coast that coincides with the forecast? Well, they've already done that. Not just once, multiple times. 5.0s in the Gulf of California, they omitted. 4.5s off the coast of Oregon, they omitted and did not report to the world. We had to get it from the Europeans. So again, they do that, and it's kind of sad, but so we have to watch there. It may have already struck. It may have already been that 4-ish earthquake, which is causing all the movement down to the southeast. Nobody would feel it if it's that far off the coast, and it's just a 4. No doubt about it, no one would feel it. So anyways, it's just a dead zone that we have to watch. Now, I don't know if it's dead because they're making it dead, like not reporting, or if it's because it's legitimately silent. And if it is legitimately silent, look at the areas moving on both sides. If they're not playing any kind of games, then we have a big silent zone that extends from basically North Oregon to Northern California at the Gorda Escarpment. And we would expect to see movement because look at the movement on either side. Mount St. Helens, Three Sisters, all of them struck over the past several days. Down to the south, pumping operations and dormant volcanoes, and now fault zones moving. Now to the east, let's just address the edge of the craton. Take a look at it. Last 24 hours, 1.6 at the western portion of the underground magma chamber for Yellowstone, extending all the way west into Idaho. Large swarm breaking out back again at Kansas and Oklahoma at the fracking operations. Then to the east, the New Madrid seismic zone struck, also a 1.1 in New Jersey, along the eastern edge of the North American craton. Now, we were expecting this. We talked about this at length over the past several days. As a matter of fact, last night I told you guys, East Coast, no way around it. You're going to start seeing smaller earthquakes develop, and it's going to strike along the northeast edge of the craton, and it should be 1 magnitude less than the earthquake striking in the Midwest right now, and that was last night. So today, again, 1 magnitude less. Take a look at it. We had 2.3 here, for instance, 2.5, 2.1, 2.8 strike here, relieving most of the pressure. Whatever's left over went to the New Madrid, released with a 1.3, and leftover pressure went up to the northeast, 1.1 lesser in New Jersey. Now that would be those mystery booms and rumbles people hear on the northeast, especially in New Jersey. There's all these reports going back like 5 years talking about mystery booms and rumbles in New Jersey and in the northeast, and they don't know what causes it. Well, the reason they don't know what causes it is because they're not looking into craton movement. And the reason they're not looking into craton movement is because they'd find out that the craton is moving. The North American plate is moving in the opposite direction than what all the textbooks and all geology says. They say that the plate is moving from the mid-Atlantic ridge, somehow magically spreading and pushing the whole world apart. They're saying it's pushing the United States to the west. Well, actually, what's happening is the United States is being pushed to the east, and the earthquakes progress along the edge of the craton as it's being pushed. And it's been happening for a very long time, which means they got it tremendously wrong, which means they'll never admit that this is happening. So on the East Coast, you've got to pay attention to what's going on the West Coast, because the professionals are telling you that your earthquakes on the East Coast are not related to the earthquakes on the West Coast, and that the transfer across the edge of the plate, is just a by chance accident that happens over and over again every week. And I don't believe in accidents that happen all the time. Coincidences cease to be coincidence when they happen every week. And while I say that, let me grab my beer. Hold on. Oh. Ooh. Samuel Smith's Organic Chocolate Stout. Excellent. I swear. And it's like it's a pint, so it's one of the bigger bottles. Really nice. Okay. So that's the earthquake activity in the United States. What do we have to watch out for in the next few days? Let me recap it. 4 to the south, leaning upwards of upward 4. And then off the coast, whether it's a silent zone by intention or a silent zone by omission, or in a silent zone, naturally speaking, it's a spot to watch just in case for similar movement to occur. So we're talking about in that mid 4 to low 5 range off the coast. Additionally, the edge of the craton should move after that. After we see that large of movement, it'll then press to the east, and it'll cause more earthquakes to strike on the western edge of the craton from Yellowstone to Colorado. Picking back up in southwest Texas, most likely will get struck again. That will then push to the east-northeast, and then the east coast you will be struck. So it all depends on the size on the west coast. So 4s on the west coast, 3s in the Midwest, 2s on the east coast. Not too much to worry about. But if we see anything larger, like 2 weeks ago, when it was 5.2 on the west coast, borderline 4s in the Midwest, and then 3.3 in the Northeast in Quebec. If a 3.3 struck in New York, people would be seriously alarmed. It would make international news, but because it struck just a little bit north of the border, people aren't made aware of it, except for geologists, seismologists who might be paying attention, such as myself. Now, overall, internationally speaking, we told you the areas to watch are the silent zones. Well, now we have areas that have crept out in between the silent zones. So, again, we're looking at the last full 24 hours right now. So watch the spots in between each silent zone. So we have a middle point in between the movement that occurred near Ecuador and Colombia, and then movement, let's see, a middle point in between the 4.3 and the swarm to the north and Baja. So that's 2 silent zones in the middle that we have to watch. So this puts us back into, what is that, Costa Rica again. El Salvador, Costa Rica, going just north of the spot there, and putting us into Gulf of California, where the volcano is still putting off sulfur dioxide. See these 2 little specks here on the screen. Hopefully you guys can see this. And my mouse hasn't matched up with this just because I'm not doing a full screen share, so I apologize for that, but there's no way I can get around that. But you see the 2 specks on the screen. These are 2 islands. The northern island is Barcena Volcano on Isla San Benedicto. And it was putting off a large sulfur dioxide plume over the past several days, and it carries on to today, meaning that that volcano is showing activity there right in the middle, in between the 2 points that have moved. It was also struck with a 4.3 earthquake at the start of this past week. It's now gone off the map. So Barcena volcano hasn't erupted since the 1950s, and the last time it erupted, it put off a 1,000-foot tall new cone coming up out of the ocean. And it produced large pyroclastic flows and huge ash clouds when it did it in the 50s. 1952 to 1953, it erupted for a year straight and produced a 1,000-foot tall island that's still there today. So that's the middle spot in between the spots that we have to watch that spot, obviously. To the south, again, we get down to a middle point, and that takes us back into Peru. So Peru already struck to the north and to the south. Right in the middle, needs to be on watch. This will then press to the east-southeast, may give us another earthquake at South Chile, similar to the size and movement occurring to the north. So again, we're only in that 5 range. So watch down to the south of Chile. Then that will press over to the east. And you can see on the screen, this is the South Sandwich Islands and the curve of the plate. Well, the curve of the plate takes the shape of which way the pressure transfers, ironically. So we'll see the pressure transfer down here at the tip and then go over to the east and release right here along the ridge. Sometimes, if there's a lot of pressure that reaches this point, it actually will press just a little bit more, and you'll see another earthquake like right there, or another earthquake right here to the north on the mid-Atlantic. And internationally speaking, overseas are silent zones. Well, take a look at it. Last 24 hours of earthquakes since last night's update, all the zones that we were watching got hit with the 5.9, and of course north of Japan, and over here in Sumatra. Let's just quickly show you what struck in Sumatra. Because people were saying to me last night, or this morning, hey, what's going to happen with Sumatra? You said it was going to get hit, and then nothing got hit. It was the silent zone, right? And take a look at it. The thing that kicked this all off, before the movement up in Japan, before the new 5.9, Sumatra struck right in that little spot with just a minor movement, but it was the first earthquake to strike there. It had gone silent for up to 48 hours, and then the whole West Pacific went silent. Again, from my update from yesterday, we talked about the whole West Pacific going silent. Isn't it weird that it's going silent? I said, yes. Spot to first move should be over here. I'm leaning towards the west. Then it'll go to the east, and it sure did. So that's kind of a quick update for everybody internationally. Now let's get into Europe. To get into Europe, we have to turn on the European feed. This is from the German Geophone Agency. Also, several other European agencies feed into the EMSC. And since last night, we had the deep earthquake strike near Romania. Well, since then, and it's not on the map here now, and I don't know why they removed it, but striking central North Italy, a 3.6 earthquake struck. You would have had to have been on the feed earlier today to catch it. Many of my viewers were here. I'm sure you caught it. So you'll just have to trust me. It was there. It's now gone. But just imagine a 3.0 size earthquake with the rings that you see here with 3.0 right here in the middle. And it struck near Rome. Now, or actually North Italy, north of Rome by 180 kilometers. Then Switzerland was struck by multiple earthquakes. Those are also gone off the feed. Now, I don't know what's going on with the Europeans, but they are now starting to do what we see the USGS do, which is remove controversial earthquakes. And they're obviously paying attention to the forecast because they removed the 6.0 from Hawaii right after my viewers contacted the USGS and told them, this is great. 6.0 strikes in Hawaii, USGS ignores it, Europeans reported it. My viewers were listening to me and I got on and said, hey, why don't you guys contact the USGS and tell them DutchSinse says much love and send them the link. Well, they did. And the USGS responded and wrote an email response back to the Dutch Squad group. And that's over on the Dutch Squad page. I won't get into that right now. But within an hour after the USGS responding, guess what the Europeans were forced to do? Even though it was recorded on 43 different stations, the earthquake was deleted. And the reason being is because the RIMPAC military exercises are going out there, and it was a frequency-induced earthquake 10 kilometers below the surface. All those subs and planes and boats out there with their very low frequency, ultra-high frequency, radar systems, HARP, the Chinese Meridian, which is just like the HARP. If you were to look up Chinese Meridian, you will find that the China program is actually, it might even be better than the U.S. program, the HARP program that we have. So they have the facilities capable of looking down into the earth and seeing down into natural gas deposits and oil deposits and deep underground bases, communicating with their subs, generating low frequency from high frequency, all the things that they can do with HAARP. It can induce an earthquake. So if you combine that with the other high power systems that were going in Hawaii, the Europeans reported it not knowing what the real deal is. And that's why the USGS has ignored the last 3 6.0 earthquakes to strike out there in the last 4 years. 3 different 6.0 earthquakes struck near Hawaii in the past 4 years, and the USGS didn't report a single one of them. They pretended it didn't exist, it's not on the charts, and they said it didn't happen. Why? Because each time there's a naval exercise going on out there that's inducing an earthquake far below the plate. So I hope this has been kind of informative for you. In Europe, you guys, there's only a few spots to watch. And the spots to watch, of course, just like around the rest of the planet, are silent zones. Now you can see the earthquakes have progressed all the way across, all the way to Gibraltar, just north of Morocco. This is Spain right here. Southeast Spain even struck by a rare 3.0 earthquake. Now this will press to the west, so we have to watch the Canaries, the Azores, and the central mid-Atlantic ridge going to the north mid-Atlantic ridge for possible new earthquake activity that's at least 1 magnitude larger than the combined total of everything pressing to the west. So this would take us back into our 4.0 range, but if it strikes, let's say, at the Azores, at the volcanoes here, as opposed to on the ridge, that might actually cause new volcanic activity, because they're volcanic islands, could also cause a new swarm to develop out at one of these locations. As if that wasn't enough, the pressure also transfers to the west-northwest, across South Europe, going up across Italy, as we told you last night, culminating with this 3.6 that's not on the map here now, and the swarm that was at CERN that's not there now. We'll press to the north-northwest and hit up here along the English Channel, North France, Belgium, possibly Netherlands. Don't normally mention the Netherlands in the earthquake forecast. The last time we mentioned it, they did get struck. Got struck right in the Hague. So we'll have to watch there. And it was just a small earthquake. I mean, it was like a 2 or something. But again, the earthquakes are based upon the size of the magnitudes that we expect, are based upon the other magnitudes nearby. So you see the 3s, you see the combined total of all the 2s. That will add up to one single larger earthquake, most likely, to the north-northwest, which takes us up into the upper 3s, lower 4, because we go up a magnitude of 100. When you go up 1 magnitude, you're going up by 100 in statistical terms. So, when you see a larger earthquake develop, it's usually a combined total of all the movement to the south, which takes us, again, if what we're looking at on the screen here is accurate, takes us up into the 4.0 range. And the silent zone spot to get hit, silent zone to the north in Europe, is always right along the English Channel, North France, going as far east as Netherlands. You got another silent zone over here in East Europe. That's Poland, Romania, Hungary, even possibly as far west as Austria. We'll get into that tomorrow morning. We're going to have to wait and see what else happens down in Turkey, because Turkey, as we talked about last night, that's carrying on as well. I mean, most people aren't concerned because, this is a world away for most of my viewers. But you should understand what's going on, because if a large earthquake strikes here, at least you'll understand why. The whole country of Turkey has been getting hit by a swarm for the last week. Starting with a swarm here on the west border, right at the west border, going over to the eastern border and along the Black Sea. This is the Black Sea to the north and the Caspian Sea to the east. So, whole country of Turkey moved in a swarm. Now, what does that mean? Well, the pressure is coming from the West Pacific, and we got to go back almost a week. I hope I can do this. Hold on, let me show it to you. Why is Turkey getting struck now with a swarm? Here, let's turn this down. Well, you can't see the largest of the bunch, but you can still see the swarm. Imagine one larger earthquake here, a 6.5. Okay, so a 6.5 struck north of Kazakhstan, east of Tajikistan, south of Russia, and west of China, right at their little border region. They all meet right there. Large earthquake struck there over a week ago, I think 8 days ago, followed by the swarm, which happened this past week. Well, what happened since then? It pushed to the west, like it always does. Now we see our larger USGS reported earthquakes here. And we take this back over and look at the European feed again, since we have to bump between feeds. And you can see how it carried over to the east with our smaller events. again, the pressure loses momentum when it presses across the plate, whether it's going from the West Pacific over towards the Atlantic across Europe. And in the United States, it's the exact opposite. It starts in the Pacific, goes across the United States, towards the Atlantic, to the east. But it's all pushing towards the mid-Atlantic ridge. And that is what is causing our buckle. It's causing our north and south facing ridges and our east and west fracture zones. The east and west fracture zones must have been caused and be being caused by pressure of two plates pressing together. These were never connected. These do not fit together. You have to shrink Africa by like 30% and add 1 billion years to the age of the universe to get that to work. So these are being pushed together. And the ridges prove that. Accretionary ridges all up and down the whole mid-Atlantic. And they say that it's from lava, that the ridges are from lava spreading. That is not, it's just hogwash. That's just an old supposition that's now being debunked as we see that the earthquakes press in the opposite direction than what we're told the plates move. It's really just a wild time to be in geology. So, does that cover everybody? I hope that covers everybody on the planet. We covered Central America. We covered South America. We covered where to watch over the next day. Tomorrow I'll be back on, so you guys know that if anything does happen between now and then, we're watching the silent zones, and we're watching the silent zones for magnitudes up to 1 larger than the nearby movement. So each silent zone's bordered by movement nearby. Now you know to watch. 1 magnitude larger nearby each silent zone. And that will get us through till tomorrow. I didn't do a forecast video this week, so this is kind of the first week where I'm doing live updates and giving you guys what to watch day by day, like a day-by-day weather forecast. So you know what to watch for tomorrow. And you know which magnitudes to watch for. And when we get into Southern California, this may take us out in the next day, 2 days. The Southern California activity is more like a weekly forecast, but I'll be readdressing it again tomorrow. We'll see what happens between now and then. And again, the silent zones in California stand out as obvious. Los Angeles right in between it, and then the area off Oregon going down to northwest California. Again, silent. You would expect to see movement at this point. Because there has not been movement, there should be, and it's most likely building pressure. And anytime you see silence in an area that's normally earthquake prone, that's usually the sign of a coming larger earthquake in the next few days. So, all right. And you know, how many people are in here? 300 people. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I want to thank the Dutch Squad Earthquake Group, Dutch Squad EQ, over on Facebook. If you don't know about them, go check them out. It's a closed group. You got to ask to be a member. You got to be into geophysics and not into trolling. And if you're into all those things, then you can get a hold of us and subscribe up and start sharing information with other people who are like-minded. If you could, I would like you guys to share this. Not trying to be an imposition or anything. Hold on, let me get a beer. Hold on. Oh my God. Oh. I don't know if you guys are into beer. And I used to be kind of into it, and I got out of it for a while. But now I can really appreciate a really good, you got your craps. I'm from St. Louis, the home of Budweiser. And, it tastes like an aluminum can, because it is in an aluminum can, and it's brewed in metal. But, when it comes to this stuff, I'll tell you what, you got to look into it. Samuel Smith's Organic Chocolate Stout. It's quite frankly one of the best beers I've ever had. It kind of has a little chocolatey flavor, but it's not artificial. It's all natural. So, everybody in here, if you like my stuff, please share it. Otherwise, I try sharing it myself, and I get like 2 shares on Facebook. Facebook blocked me for many reasons. We won't even go there. And I don't really use Twitter. My Twitter feed's like totally sucks. So I rely on you guys to get it out. And I know you've been doing it because now we've reached over 300,000 people in the last month of doing the live stream. We've only been doing it like a month here on this channel, and we reached 300,000 people. So the number you see on the screen here, the 298, you notice it refreshes every 30 seconds to a minute or less. And that number is constant. So there's a constant 100 people in here. Even when there's 60 or 70, that's a constant steady 60 or 70 constantly coming in. When one person leaves, it's replaced by another. So it means that there's a steady stream of people, and the overall view count now shows it. And you guys can see the view count. Down below the video, next to the share button, it says more with 3 little dots. Click that, click on statistics, take a look at it. It's skyrocketed up through the top. We're going to be one of the top live streams here in a minute. And I want to thank you guys for helping me do that, because I couldn't have done it on my own. And this place is serving a function. It already served a function last week. Let me just tell you a quick story. 2 weeks ago, there was a 5.2 that struck in Southern California. And while the earthquake was still occurring, there were people in chat here, in this chat room that you see now on the side of the screen, that were feeling the earthquake as it was striking, and they were typing. And they made a first-hand report as it was happening. Before it ever even made it to the USGS site, we already had the report and an approximate magnitude based upon the shake reports felt nearby. And we were able to get that out before it was even on Twitter. Now, we beat Twitter to the punch because, of course, it's live. We are live right here, and it's like watching live news, but being able to interact with other viewers. I know, I hate to use CNN as an example, but could you imagine if CNN was live and interactive, where you could interact with the host, like interact with Anderson Cooper, and then also interact with other viewers? CNN sucks, but I mean, could you just imagine if that was like on other shows or other things that you do in life? It's really cool, and it's come in handy once already with a moderate earthquake. So when a large earthquake finally strikes, and it'll happen in the next few months for sure, we'll see another large earthquake strike. And if a tsunami is generated, it will come in invaluable, because a lot of lines for information are flooded. People don't know where to go to get the information on their elevation, their height. My relative who lives in California, I didn't even know this. I assumed they were up on the mountain. I've never been out there to see them. But they're in the low-lying area. They're right at sea level. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? Oh, and I'm like, where are you again? They tell me their location, and I'm like, okay. And I start thinking about it, and this is a function that can come in handy, knowing your elevation and where you can go nearby in case a wave is coming in. And if you're under 50 feet, if your elevation's under 50 feet from sea level, well, you got to have a plan to know what to do. And luckily she's got one. And, just overall, when I think about other viewers, though, think about somebody who's disabled, like in a wheelchair or something. You know what I mean? Like what about those people? So we gotta have like plans developed, and local governments have to be involved. And this is where you guys get in, because right now it's kind of a taboo subject. Preparation, talking about disasters. We need to get out from under that fear porn blanket, that it's scary to talk about, and that it's scary to prepare, and that it's something that's just wise to do overall. You're going to tell the people in the Midwest not to prepare for storms. That's not wise. It just isn't wise. It's a good idea, and it's not scary fear porn to prepare for storms and tornadoes. We know they're going to come. Well, the same thing goes for earthquakes. You know they're going to come. It's not scary or fear porn. Same with volcanoes. But volcanoes, of course, it's way less to prepare for, because you're just talking about an ash fallout. That's pretty much it. The threat of a lava flow hitting you is just slim to none. So, ash fallout is all we're really concerned about with volcanic eruptions. But these are things that we can talk about and prepare for now, especially when we see them happening. It would be one thing if we were totally silent and there was no sulfur dioxide plume coming off of Southwest California, Baja. It'd be one thing if there was no swarms happening at a volcano. But when those things are going on, it's prudent to talk about what you would do if that happened, right? So we got to get beyond the whole fear thing, and that's what we're doing here on the channel. I'm always calm, cool, and collected in what I'm presenting. Maybe not when I'm getting trolled, but definitely in what I'm presenting, I'm calm, cool, collected, and I always want to remind everybody, the old motto that I've used for the last several years, don't be scared, be prepared. And this stands true in everything in life. If you're prepared for something, or if you're expecting something, or at least you know what's going into something going on, you're not left running around crazy trying to figure out what's happening at the same time that the disaster's happening, So, again, everybody, if you could, share it. The share button's down below. And if you aren't subscribed, you can subscribe up. I'm getting ready to break through. It looks like 148,000 subscribers. So it's skyrocketing as well. We're just keep going up on the subscribers. I want to thank all the new subs who are here. I promise not to let you down. I'll always have the stream going as long as I can. and to do my updates appropriately, either whether it's nightly at 10 p.m. or when they call for in the day if something goes down, and to get the weekly forecast done. At this point, it's kind of double overlapping. I mean, I can do the weekly video still, but the live stream is where it's at. And if we can start recording the live stream and getting it out like a video, I think that's probably what I'll be doing in the future, because there's no point in double recording what I'm doing right now. Everybody in chat, I mean, I'm just going to read off some names. Rebecca, Wake Up, No Rain, Obstinate, Kel Questions, Earth Rover. You guys are all awesome. And everybody else. Sunshine, Corey, just everybody. You've been a tremendous help on everything that I've been doing. We've got moderators now. Sunshine, Animatronic, and Mama Warrior are now moderators. So if we're getting trolled, they can kick into action. Animatronic will end the broadcast here. Many thanks to all the people who are involved, to the Dutch Squad Earthquake Group and everybody else. And Animatronic, look, I'm going to play it again here. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear this. I think you hear it, but I don't know if you can hear it or not. Okay, you know what? That really sucks that it didn't work. Okay, if it's got to be OBS that's doing it. Hold on for 1 second. Let me just go ahead. You got to see this. This thing is just awesome. And if it was popping and skipping when we came in, you got to see what Animatronic made for me, guys. It's just incredible. There's 2 versions, and I'm going to play for you the second version. The first version's already on my YouTube channel. But he deserves tremendous thanks for doing this. I mean, beyond tremendous thanks, because it's incredible. It's right up my alley with the retro new wave stuff. I don't want to spoil it for you. Let me turn on the display capture, and we'll just hit play. Now check this out. He just made this, and again, this is advertising the live stream, all right? How about that? Isn't that cool, man? I swear to you, that's the coolest thing in the world. And I've got it up on my channel now. And there's another version. Let me get that one here. Hold on. If I've got it. Oh, okay. It's going to be hard to find. I got it mixed in with a bunch of other stuff here. But, oh no, wait. Never mind. Here it is. Here it is. absolutely epic, beyond cool, for real. It's got that Mr. Robot kind of classic 80s retro feel to it, but yet still 21st century. Really kick-ass. And Animatronic outdid himself. He made the awesome background here that you see on the screen now for the live stream. So Earthquake 3D is not just floating with an open black background and a hodgepodge, a grandma's quilt of stuff on the screen. He really brought it all together and made it really cool. So it's 10:45 p.m. Central Time on July 4th, 2016. If you're on the West Coast, you're probably still partying for the 4th, but it's probably winding down for many people on the East Coast and in the Midwest. I'll be back on in an hour. So we can do a Q&A at about 11:45 p.m. I can get on and do question and answer with people, and we can discuss kind of topics of the day. If you guys have any kind of questions across the board, I like to answer them. I mean, if it's related to geophysics, I really like to answer it, but I'll answer other questions as long as they don't go too personal or too religious or too psycho or whatever you want to call these different fringe topics people talk about. So, there will be a Q&A tonight, 11:45 p.m. Central, and we'll just go for as long as I can. I'll probably have another beer, but I won't be drunk. So, look, it's taken me 45 minutes to drink a pint. Boy, do I like to talk. This thing's getting warm while I'm sitting there talking. That's great, though, because a stout, you can drink it warm, baby. You can let that sucker get warm. It tastes just as good as when it was fresh cold out of the fridge. Yes. Much love, guys. It's, again, this has been a wild adventure here online. And now that I know that we're reaching out to the world in a way that's actually making a difference, that to me makes all the difference. For a little while there, I didn't know what's the purpose of